Hello, and welcome to this class on improvising at the organ for service players. The first thing I want to tell you is that you're already an improviser. The reason for that is that the music that is printed in hymnals is not organ music. It's choral music. So every time that you have chosen to hold a pedal note rather than repeating it, or doing the same for the alto line while you repeat the soprano line, you're already improvising. You're already playing something that is not on the page. Every time you choose to solo out a melody, you're already improvising. Each time a pastor or another church official has been late for something, or each time the communion takes a bit longer, or the offering takes a bit shorter to collect, you've improvised a way to musically solve those situations. So we're just going to take those steps a little bit further today. Wherever you are on the journey as an improviser, I hope this class gives you at least one next step that you might want to take. Here's a simple way to improvise, and it makes your job a lot easier, and it captures the ear of the congregation so that they'll sing more joyfully when it's their turn. Use a drone or an ostinato. So here's a favorite hymn of mine. In this hymnal, the first four notes for tenor and bass suggest an ostinato. So what if I just stayed there for the entire duration of the hymn? Let's see what that sounds like. All of a sudden the hymn takes on a different character. Now maybe that's too static for you. We could vary the rhythm or the melodic content of that ostinato. How about if we do rhythm first? So let's do this. My feet aren't doing anything. What if they helped with that rhythm? So just an E on the first beat of every measure. That's pretty cool. What if I varied the melodic content a little bit? How about this? Adding the pedal. So I don't like that because of the clash between this and this. C sharp against C natural I don't really like. What if I reverse my pattern in the left hand? Adding the pedal. true confessions. In the middle of it, I got bored with that pattern and I slowed it down. So for the third line of the hymn, this is what I played in my left hand. Whereas before I had been playing this. So I just took the same pattern and slowed it down for that one line of the hymn. I don't know why I did that. It was totally unconscious on my part, but it turned out pretty well, so I think I'll leave that in. You could use drones. So a very famous drone that I use almost every time I play this hymn is a drone for Amazing Grace, because I love to hear bagpipes play that tune. So I set up a drone for myself with registrations for my left-handed pedal. And as I'm thinking about bagpipes, I'm probably thinking about reeds. In this case, I'm using the oboe in the swell, coupling that to the pedal, putting a 16-foot down in the pedal so I have a little bit of bass there. And then I'll choose something for the right hand that is not reedy. And let's see how that goes. If you've ever heard bagpipes play this, you know that the drone stays constant, but there's usually a little bit of a drum beat, prum, prum. And so maybe I'll let my feet do that. I'm going to give them a little bit more of a sound down there, and I'm going to play it on the first beat of every measure. If you've heard bagpipes play this, you also know that they ornament the melody. So I'm just going to try doing that a little bit. A simple way to improvise, and again, to draw your congregation in to the soundscape of this hymn, perhaps making it more meaningful and more memorable to them. An easy way to begin to improvise is to look at the music from Taizé. These are repetitive choruses, almost chant-based. They repeat a lot because they lead you by repetition into a more meditative, deeper, meaningful state. And as these repetitions happen, musicians can improvise around the repetition. Here's one, Eat This Bread. It is sung a lot at communions in congregations that I'm familiar with. It goes like this, printed on the page. This is what it looks like and sounds like. worship, that could be repeated 10, 20, 30 times even. So let's look at some of the ideas that come straight from Taizé. They're printed in this hymnal. Here's one of them. So let's assume that the congregation has repeated "eat this bread, drink this cup" several times. They're very familiar with the melody. And so that leaves us free to do other things. How about if our left hand and pedal play what's in the hymnal, and our right hand plays that flute melody above the congregation singing? So using the same idea, let's make up a different melody for our right hand. And as you can hear, there's one note that I would like to change in there. If I'm doing it live, I just have to let it dissipate into space and let it go from my mind so I can think forward and set up my next success. If it's not live, if I've just rehearsed it, I might write something into my music. Another simple thing that you can do that's not so simple in practice is invert the soprano and alto line. So leave the soprano where it is, but play the alto up an octave. It creates an automatic descant. Let's try that. And along those same lines, you can invert tenor, make it go up an octave. You can play the alto down an octave. You could solo out the tenor or the alto. Instant descants that way. Another easy way is to just go with the chord symbols and improvise around those. So let's pretend that the congregation is handling the melody really well, and we're just going to improvise on chord symbols. So there are all sorts of things that you can do, and as you are led by repetition into a more meditative state, more and more things will occur to you. Another good place in which to start improvising is on familiar hymns, familiar to you and familiar to the congregation. When they know the hymn really well, it frees you to be able to do all sorts of other things that can draw them more into the text that they're singing. Here's an example. It's the hymn, "Let My People Go." My congregation knows this hymn really well, and so I do all sorts of wild things to let them know what we're singing about. In this hymnal, it has 4 stanzas, and I'm going to play all 4 stanzas. I'll display the text below so that you'll hear what I'm trying to do to draw them into that text. And then I'll just illustrate some of the things that I do, including not playing at all. I do it differently every single time, and I let them inspire me. So if they're singing really well, then I push it a little bit further. And if they're not singing well, then I come back and I help them to sing well. So improvisation can be a non-static thing, can be a constantly creative thing as you are helping your congregation as choir be successful, be inspired, be creative themselves. Here's a hymn that I'm kind of famous in my congregations for improvising and actually appearing to mess up. It catches people by surprise, but I do it for reasons of the text. The text leads us to messy places and makes us think. It's a beautiful text by Shirley Aruna Murray, a New Zealand author. And this is how it goes. Touch the earth lightly, use the earth gently, nourish the life of the world in our care. Gift of great wonder, ours to surrender, trust for the children tomorrow will bear. We who endanger, who create hunger, agents of death for all creatures that live. We who would foster clouds of disaster, God of our planet, forestall and forgive. Let there be greening, birth from the burning, water that blesses and air that is sweet, health in God's garden, hope in God's children, regeneration that peace will complete. God of all living, God of all loving, God of the seedling, the snow, and the sun, teach us, deflect us. Christ, reconnect us, using us gently and making us one. This is a lovely hymn tune, and it fits very well with stanzas 1, 3, and 4 of that text. But stanza 2, I can't let stand alone. I can't play it as written. When it talks about we who endanger, who create hunger, who create clouds of disaster, I can't play it as it's written. So this is just about the most extreme improvisation that I do while the congregation is singing, but I do it for reasons of the text. So, creating clouds of disaster, but also illustrating the greening of God's garden, and at the end, making us one. I often remove all harmonies so that we are one in unison. Another hymn that I love to improvise upon is on Christmas Eve, when my congregation usually sings Silent Night. They know that hymn very, very well, so of course they don't need me to play the melody, except just to lead them in. Often I let them sing a cappella, but sometimes I just create a soundscape around them that I hope illustrates the silence and the awesomeness in every sense of that word, the starstruck wonder of the gift of that night. And I'm trying to draw my congregation into that feeling. So here's an example. sometimes a sound can capture your imagination and help you to improvise. How about a trumpet? Try pulling on a trumpet stop and just playing around with what you could do with that trumpet. Repeated triads on trumpets are very effective. Try that sometime. This hymn has repeated trumpets for a reason. See if that can inspire you. So here's a triumphant hymn. Praise music. Praise to the Lord, the Almighty, the King of creation, has been praise music for centuries. Let's try adding some trumpets in strategic spots. Just try it. See what happens. I guarantee you your congregation will take note. And as you try it, you'll get better and better and better. Building on those techniques, then, is what composers have been doing for centuries. You could improvise an entire prelude, or a communion piece, or an offertory, or a postlude. You can use as your example models from history. Here's a published example in the public domain so that I can share it with you. It's from the German composer Siegfried Karg-Ehlert, and he left us many chorale preludes, short pieces based on hymn tunes. This is on the German hymn, O Gott, du frommer Gott, or O God, thou faithful God. As printed in the hymnal, it sounds like this. Now let's see what Karg-Ehlert does when he treats this hymn. The first thing he does is change the key, but watch what he does with each phrase. So what if we tried the same thing with a hymn that might be familiar to us? I've chosen a hymn that I hope is familiar to most of us. It's the hymn tune Dix, to which we usually sing, "For the Beauty of the Earth." So what did Kraybill do? Well, he has 3 manuals set up as mezzo forte, mezzo piano, pianissimo. And he takes each phrase of the hymn, plays it, and then a tag, and then repeats that tag on the 2 softer manuals. So let's try that. And all of a sudden, we have a little chorale prelude. Now, Kraybill did more than that, of course. In his setting, he added lots of passing tones and lots more alternate harmonies than I just added. But this could be a good way to start. There are many published examples from contemporary composers that I can't show you because of copyright restrictions. But look for anything marked partita in any publisher's organ catalog, and you'll find basically a set of variations on hymn tunes. And you can take ideas from those composers and try some of your own. If you look particularly in the Baroque, you will find chorale preludes of all shapes and sizes by all sorts of composers. Here's one by Johann Kraybill. It's on the Christmas tune, "From Heaven Above to Earth I Come." That tune goes like this. Kraybill puts the tune in long notes in the feet. Let's see how he does that. So we then could take that model and use our own hymn to see what we could do. Let's start simply. We'll keep the tune in our feet, and we'll improvise something a little less complex than Pachelbel did. Let's do 4 notes in our hands to every note in our feet. We'll use the same registration as Pachelbel did, but let's use a different hymn tune. This one must be familiar to you. So long notes in our feet, 4 notes in our hands compared to every 1 note in our feet. Let's see how we do. Nothing profound at all. And what's missing is I am doing 4 notes in my hand compared to every one in my feet, but my hands really didn't have a voice of their own. How about if we try a triple rhythm like Pachelbel did, and we'll see if we can have our hands have a little bit of melodic interest, something that can repeat, something that's a little motive that we can catch on to. So as you can tell, I'm not an expert at this, but also as you can tell, I followed the advice of a well-known improviser named Jerry Hancock. When you make a mistake, immediately repeat it. Did you hear the unintentional E flat that I put in my pedals? So I put one in my hands too, so it sounded, I hope, more intentional. If I were doing this for a worship service, I'd probably write down some of my ideas, because the way I am, I get a little bit nervous as I'm improvising. But take a chance, see what happens, try it out. Join me on this adventurous journey on the improvising path in worship services. I guarantee you'll have fun.